Welcome back to another episode of What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur. I'm Vincent Lancy, speaker and author of the book Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption. Want to know what it's really like to be an entrepreneur? Well, you came to the right place. Whether you're already an entrepreneur, are looking to start your journey tomorrow, or just someone who needs a little extra motivation to get through the day, this is the perfect podcast for you. This is the place where you will learn exactly what it's like in the world of entrepreneurship and hear authentic stories of entrepreneurs grinding on each episode. My goal for this podcast is to help you realize that giving up is never an option. If you missed the last episode, be sure to download it after you tune in today. Before I introduce my guest, I'll share another entrepreneurial story to inspire you all. For today's episode, I will introduce the entrepreneurial journey of Maria Merce Martin. Maria Merce Martin had always had ambitions of becoming the owner of a large enterprise. She began getting very frustrated with the challenging odds of being involved in a male-dominated society while living in Venezuela. Once Chavez became president, she immigrated to the United States, left everything behind, and started this new life to follow her dreams. Her computer engineering degree had put her in direct competition with the native male applicants in the workplace, but she had bigger dreams, bigger visions than just using her degree in the first step of the workplace. She says that focusing on her goals had been the catalyst in achieving her accomplishments, and she added that she also likes to silence the naysayers with her results. These two things fueled her to accomplish great things. What she accomplished? She's the founder of Alchimie Consulting, which at the time this article was written, grosses $12 million in sales annually. I'll end this right up with a quote to inspire you all just a bit more before I introduce today's guest, where Maria was quoted saying in the article, "I had all the odds against me. I was in a male-dominated profession, a young mother with another on the way, and a dream. As an entrepreneur, you have to stay focused no matter what and silence the doubts with results." Hey, Ada, what'd you like best about this story?
Hey, Vincent. I love this quote, silence the doubt with results. It is so powerful. I'm going to put it on a post-it and I think stick it to my mirror. It's something that I have so frequently thought, although maybe not put in those such eloquent words, while building my brand Alchimie Forever. It's about action. And as you said in your introduction, it's about never giving up. And I think those words, silence the doubt with results, are just super powerful.
Absolutely. Well, that voice you all just heard, that's the sound of today's guest. My guest on the show today is somebody I met through networking, as she was a referral from someone on my other podcast series, A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lancy. My guest has a distinguished educational background that includes magna cum laude, bachelor's of arts in political science and art history at Harvard University, followed by an MBA from Georgetown University. In 2004, Ada Polla set out to launch her family's Swiss-based skincare line in the United States. Today, the brand boasts global visibility and distribution thanks to her focus and determination, which have yielded double-digit annual growth and garnered her several press-worthy opportunities to communicate her family's knowledge and passion for the science of anti-aging skincare. She was featured on the cover of Business Week Small Biz and was one of the top 5 finalists nominated for Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year by Entrepreneur Magazine. In 2011, the Network For Teaching Entrepreneurship presented her with the Homegrown Entrepreneur Award. So allow me to please introduce Ada Polla. Ada, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. This is such a wonderful opportunity, and I will confess it's my first podcast ever, so be gentle, please. But I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm sure you're going to do great. It's my pleasure to have you on. Would you mind please introducing yourself to our listeners today and previewing your story just a bit without giving too much away of the entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Geneva in Switzerland. And to give you a sense of my family, which I think shaped a lot of what I am, who I am and what I'm doing, I'm the eldest of 4 sisters. And my parents are both medical doctors and entrepreneurs in their own ways. Now, you may be wondering why I don't have such a huge French accent having grown up in Geneva, Switzerland. It's because I actually left Switzerland when I was 17. in the late summer of 95 to come to college to the US. And, you embarrassed me with my educational accolades. But I had lived in Boston, Massachusetts for 2 years when I was a child. Because of my parents' medical career, we lived there from 84 to 86. And those were my favorite childhood years. And I always wanted to come back to the US. So I did. I came back for college, and, my parents put me on a plane in August of 95 and said, see you at Christmas. And I came to the US and I started college here. And I think that, has shaped my fierce sense of independence, and also my belief, because my parents thought this was totally normal and the thing to do. And they thought and knew that I would be fine just, crossing the ocean, going to a different country and figuring out my dorm situation on my own, and the belief that I could do anything and that I would be fine. So again, without going too much into Alchimie Forever, that gives you a little bit of a sense of how I got to be here today.
Well, I'm excited to learn all about it, and I know everybody listening on will too. But it's time for the big five here, Ada. And on each episode, my guest and I will go over these 5 questions to help you, the listeners, learn what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Are you ready to go?
I am ready. I love your big 5.
Let's do it. When did you realize that you weren't happy with what you were doing, or that you needed just some kind of change to truly start this entrepreneurial journey? Please walk us through your story.
Yes. And, this is such a smart question. I thought about it a lot, and it's hard for me to pinpoint a single moment in time, really. I think the journey is, started when I came to the US for college. But to be more specific, I graduated college in 1999. And back then, I'm really dating myself here, but anyway, at least I have good anti-aging skincare, so that's good. But at that time, it was really all about investment banking and consulting. I mean, you went to college, you graduated, and you followed one of those 2 paths. And so I chose consulting, and I worked in management consulting for an international firm that had offices in Boston, but then was asked to go to their headquarters, which was in Barcelona, Spain. And I was, super excited. So I worked there, and I was making good money. I was contributing to international consulting projects. I was learning quite a bit. I was working with fun people. But at one point, after about a year and a half, I just thought, I'm like, this is not quite feeling right. I didn't feel like I was building anything. In consulting, you're asked to go, you're tasked with a project, you have a lot of research and analysis to do, you present your findings, and then you leave, and you hope that the people you presented your findings will do something with them. But I never got to see what this work yielded. And then I also really disliked the corporate politics. So I did a lot of soul searching and thought, my family is kind of in the beauty business. My father has a medical spa in Switzerland. He was the pioneer he's a dermatologist, and he was a pioneer in bringing laser technology to Europe from his couple of years in Boston in the mid-'80s. And I thought that seems kind of like a fun industry. So why don't I go into the medical device business? And so I worked for a laser manufacturing company. And I think that's when I kind of, not thinking I'm going to get into the family business, but maybe even unconsciously, I thought the beauty business is fun, and this was kind of my path. And so I worked for this laser manufacturing company for a couple of years as a product manager. I did really well, and then I got super bored. And that is when I decided I needed to do something that was more challenging. So at that time, my father had a couple products that he had created with a friend of his who was a pharmacist, and he was giving them away to his patients in Switzerland. And I thought, well, this, maybe this could be something, be a real brand, and maybe we could package them in something other than these homemade white jars and sell them first of all, and then bring them, beyond our patients in my father's dermatology practice in Switzerland. And so that's when the idea kind of started. But as I said, I'm Swiss, although I'm also American, but I have the Swiss conservative values ingrained in me. And so I thought I need to go and get a second degree. And the idea of my MBA was really as an insurance policy, because I thought, okay, well, I'll have this nice piece of paper from Harvard. I'll have a nice piece of paper, hopefully from Georgetown Business School, and then I can try my own thing. And if it fails, I'll be able to go and get like a real job at some company that, will like those pieces of paper. So I ended up at Georgetown Business School, and I started Alchimie during my Georgetown studies. I did all entrepreneurship classes, and I used my entrepreneurship professors as kind of advisors, and really started the brand in business school.
That's a great lesson there, using the resources right in front of you. Your advisors were there. You took advantage of it. But let's walk back to, you said you had a white label originally was your packaging. What was that first label after the white label like? What was that process like, from just going from something plain to putting it on?
Oh my God, we've had so many iterations of branding. I would tell you branding is not my forte, and is really has been the one of the hardest parts of what I do. So when we launched the brand, we called it Alchimie Forever. We had product names that were laser related terms, which we've since abandoned. Our logo has changed colors, I think about 4 times. It was initially very, very light blue, which is like sky blue, beautiful, but really not visible on white. I mean, we really learned by doing. So the iteration of the brand, went through a lot of, there were a lot of iterations that I finally feel almost 20 some years later that finally we have a brand that like looks good as a brand.
Love it. Not giving up, trial and error, making it work. It's tough with entrepreneurship because there's courses, there's ways to learn about it, but until you're actually doing it, sometimes you have to tweak it a bit and keep pivoting. But with all your experience here, Ada, what would you say 1 or 2 of the most difficult parts of being an entrepreneur are for you?
I mean, this could be in itself a 5-hour podcast. So I had to think about this one very carefully. And I wanted to actually start by telling you how I define being an entrepreneur, because I think, the word is used a lot, and it's one of those words that can mean so many things to so many different people. So to me, being an entrepreneur it means that you're building things. You build a brand, you build a team, you build a customer base, you build loyalty, you build sales. So that's really how I define entrepreneurship, is like you're a builder. One of the things that I've learned, and I've had to learn it kind of over and over again, one of my favorite lessons is this idea that success does not come, or at least in my experience, does not come from a single event. Over the course of launching my brand, so I officially launched it in the US in 2004. Again, I'm dating myself, but over the last however many years, I've had these moments, and I'm sure you can relate, where I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is my tipping point. This is like going to make my brand. This is like what I've been waiting for. And I remember the first time I felt this was, I think, in 2006. So pretty soon, delusions of entrepreneurship, 2 years after I started, I got a meeting with a company called Bliss. It was a product brand, but they also had a catalog for products. And back then, if you were in the Bliss catalog as a brand, you kind of like had made it. It was a little bit like the equivalent of being in Barney's if you wanted brick and mortar distribution. And, now bye-bye Barney's. But, and so I remember just getting that meeting. I mean, I hadn't even presented to them. They hadn't told me that I was going to be in the catalog, which in the end I was not. But just getting that meeting, I was like, you know what, this is it. This is like my big moment. And those moments, and I've had many moments since that have felt that way. And I've had to learn that those moments are special because they are part of that building process, but it is not one thing or one event or one moment that will make my brand successful. It's a lot of these small successes over and over again, built on top of each other. And it's like you said at the beginning, again, it's the not quitting. And so, I know that Malcolm Gladwell speaks about this tipping point, which is so interesting to me. And I think for brands and for brand building, maybe I just haven't gotten there, but I think there's a lot of little tipping points that you have to build on bit by bit. And this relates to, this other lesson, which is kind of a different way of saying the same thing. One of my favorite quotes is, an overnight success is 20 years in the making. So this idea that you have to be patient as an entrepreneur, that you have to be able to, take the little moments that you think everything's going to work out fine, but also you have the moments where you think this is never going to go anywhere and I want to quit, and being resilient and perseverant and just sticking it out and keep going 1 foot at a time, 1 day at a time, repeat again and again and again. I think that's the most invaluable lesson that I've learned. And again, over and over again, I've learned it.
I think this is a wonderful segue into number 3 of the big 5. You gave us a great preview here. Those are difficult things. That's how you have to learn to kind of stay on top of yourself, stay resilient, like you said, persistent. What's that one greatest failure for you over the years? That one real big lesson learned? And what did it teach you? Why is it still stuck with you all the way to today?
Oh my God. Again, I could go on and on. So I think one of my biggest lessons has been to take people's input and advice and help, but also know in my gut to trust myself when I disagree or when I don't think it's applicable. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, when I was in business school, I wanted to take advantage of all of these resources. I love to have people give me input and give me advice and say, you should do this and this. I mean, this is part of how I learn. I've not had another entrepreneurial career. I've not run another brand before. But at the same time, I have to balance that with what I know in my heart and in my gut and in my brain is right for the brand. And one specific example, which goes into, a kind of second lesson that I learned, is this idea of profits versus growth. We're a small brand, and I've been doing this for many, many years. And I've had many investment bankers and financial people kind of laugh at our size after, 15 plus years and like saying, well, I could build a brand your size in about a month and a half. And why are you still doing this? And I know it comes from a place, a positive place. But I build a brand that's profitable, that we own, my family and I, without external funding, without investment banking, without private equity. And I am so grateful that I stuck to knowing that that was what I needed to do, especially during these crazy times. We're speaking in quarantine during this COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, I'm a small brand, but we have been profitable for a number of years. And that right now is what is enabling us to stay in business. And so this idea of, growth is great, but growth can also be shitty, pardon my French. Like if it's not quality revenues, who cares about growth? And focusing on profits and on profitability, I think, is a key thing, for entrepreneurs. And that's, again, what was right for my brand. For you, you may want to focus on growth, but this is a conversation that you have to have with yourself when you launch your brand to know, this is also part of knowing what's your exit strategy. So to know the end at the beginning, and then that will impact how you build your business. And this dichotomy between profitability and growth is one of the biggest things that I've learned along the way.
I love it. I mean, I love the positivity here. You're saying you don't need to have the angel investment. You don't need to have all these things that people think that you need in order to go. Granted, it will make things easier sometimes. But could you give a tip to everybody listening on and some strategies maybe that you did instead of taking the outside sourcing, or how you kind of just did it on your own? What are some ways that you did that?
Yes, absolutely. I love to speak about that. So, there's a variety of different sources of funding. So you mentioned the ones that we have not followed. So we didn't take investment banking money. We didn't take private equity. And we didn't take what's called angel investor money, which are like smaller entrepreneurial investors or investor groups that like to see companies flourish. The way that we built Alchimie is with some of my father's money was the seed capital. And I realized that, I'm in a very privileged position to have been able to benefit from that. But that was kind of the equivalent of, let's say, life savings, which some of us entrepreneurs have. And then I took out a lot of bank loans and lines of credit. So I built the company on debt instead of on equity. And, you know, during those times, like I had to lead Alchimie through the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. I thought I was done with crises, but during that time, which was so challenging, we took on some credit card debt as well. That's a very expensive form of financing, but it's also very easy in the sense that all you have to do to get it is have good credit, and then you have to pay, you know, your monthly payments.
Yeah.
So we've obviously had a chance to pay that down. But those are the not sexy, but very, you know, very kind of nitty gritty sources of funding that we've used to build our brand. And it's also partly why we've had to grow slowly. We haven't had, you know, the capital to make big, expensive mistakes or to make big, expensive wow things. We've had to build it one product sale at a time. So it's really more the grind than, you know, the sex appeal of 500% growth from year one and lots of private equity capital. But that's the path that was right for me and for my family and for my brand.
Well, I think you're touching on a lot of great points as far as growing, but sometimes the way you grow is growth through knowledge, growth through learning. If you could choose to have a conversation and learn here, Ada, from any entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would it be?
I have two that I couldn't decide between. Is that okay?
Yes, let's hear it, but we got to hear why also.
Yes. So number one is, and please do not judge, is Bill Belichick, who is the
yeah, we spoke about that.
I mean, yes, you know, for those of you who don't know, he is the coach of the Patriots, the New England Patriots football team. And I, as a Swiss citizen, I am a diehard football fan, and I was a Patriots fan, you know, from my days in Boston, for the record, before Tom Brady was the quarterback. And Bill Belichick fascinates me, like what goes on in his head, how he watches other teams play and then adjust the strategies during the games, how he always has the kind of classic foundation, but also some surprising kind of tricks up his sleeve, how he does things unexpectedly, but builds on like the core methodology of football. It really fascinates me. Also how he drafts, you know, one of the things you talk about when you build a brand or any business is how to pick your team members. I mean, that has been one of the hardest things that I've had to do, is figure out who's right for the team as we've grown. And so I would love to talk with Bill Belichick about like how he picks his players. Some of them are so not obvious. I'm like, you know, do you have like a list of special interview questions that you could teach me that would ensure, you know, similarly good hiring and recruiting? So he is definitely one of them. And then the second is Imran Ahmed. He is the founder of Business of Fashion, which for the fashion and beauty industry is an amazing source of content, daily articles, podcasts, conferences. I was actually just listening to one of his podcasts this morning, and he has an amazing story himself as an entrepreneur, and he has a lot to contribute and to say about how there are opportunities in every crisis. And he actually launched Business of Fashion just a few days before the 2008 market crash, and then had to, you know, kind of continue to build and grow his business through that. And again, especially during these, you know, these times that we're in, I would love to pick his brain on what opportunities he sees right now for us to, you know, regardless of the industry we're in or the business that we're in, and whether we're entrepreneurs or not, what the opportunities are to restart, reassess, look at things differently, question everything. That is what I would talk to him about and pick his brains about if I could speak with him.
Well, I'm going to pick your brain for a second before we head to Big Five of the Big Five. What is one opportunity that you see out of all this madness and mayhem?
I think there's a lot of opportunity to connect with consumers in a different way. And again, I think this is true regardless of industry. I think the conversations to be having with customers right now, consumers, brand people who love your brand, really have to do with this current reality and how everyone is in the same boat, but experiencing every day a very different reality in different circumstances, speaking to them personally, speaking about health, health, you know, mental health, physical health, skin health, speaking about wellness. That to me, regardless of the industry you're in, is the biggest opportunity. And in some ways, in this physical social distancing, I have been more connected with some of our consumers than I have ever before. And yes, it's through Zoom or through email or through chat, whichever digital platform you choose. But the connections have been somehow stronger. And I think that this is a huge opportunity, which I have not yet translated this into a strategy for my own brand. I'm still working on that part, but I think that this is one of the opportunities that we have.
I think that we've been given the gift of time. Like you said, you've been actually connecting with people maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I've been definitely just taking advantage of because, well, everybody else's world is on halt and kind of different. My norm has been working in the house alone for quite some time. So this is all just getting a little old though, because of how you're really just not able to do anything outside the house, but
yeah,
we're coming out of it soon.
It's coming.
It's coming. But speaking of things coming, let's talk about the future. Let's look down the road for you here, Ada. Where do you see yourself in your entrepreneurial endeavors in 1 year from today and 5 years from today? Let's start 1 year out.
I have to say this was the hardest question that you had me think about because, again, right now I have a hard time thinking about June 2020 because of everything that's going on. Like I even have a hard time thinking about next week, quite frankly. So thinking about 2021 or 2025 I really had to stretch myself. And I thank you for the opportunity to push my brain in that direction. So right this minute for the present, I'm really focusing on perseverance and conservation, in terms of navigating this crisis. But a year from now, I would like to see a return to growth, specifically in product launches. We had to put our summer product launch for this year on hold because of the current financial situation that we're in. And so I look forward to having that, reignited and add to our product development pipeline and maybe even have 2 launches in 2021. And I'd like to continue to grow brand awareness, which, thank you, you're helping me do that, and distribution. So they're pretty tactical goals. Now, 5 years from now, I would like to be able to, bring the story of my entrepreneurial journey and the Alchimie Forever brand to more people in a bigger way. So leveraging myself and my experience more, speaking to more entrepreneurs, also speaking to more consumers about their wellness and their skin and why, taking care of your skin is not about vanity, but skincare is really part of self-care. And looking good impacts how you feel, and it also impacts how you act and kind of the version of yourself that you present to the world. And so being able to spend more time speaking, maybe even writing a book or a TED Talk, like those are my really big goals that always go back to my brand and to bringing my products and bringing that brand to people, but through my experience, that would be where I would like to see myself in 2025.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all the great things you're going to continue to accomplish. So thank you so much, Ada, for coming on the show today. I know our listeners are going to see all the value in your episode. I enjoyed how you were honest in the beginning. Well, you said even though you had these degrees, and I look at it the same, that's how I relate with you, where the office 9 to 5 just wasn't for me. And it's for other people, which is fine. But you able to have the perseverance, the courage to just keep going, build this brand up in now 2004, over 15 years in business. I think that's truly remarkable. But it's time for the last word here, Ada. Is there something that you would like to share with everybody listening on that we didn't get to touch on yet today?
I would just like to encourage everyone who has a dream to do something about it every day. Little, even if it's a little thing. I think entrepreneurship is such a beautiful thing. And if you have a dream, get up and do something to act on that dream. Dreams are great, and I dream a lot, but actions, to go back to the very beginning, actions speak louder than words, and it's all in the act and in the results that you are going to be able to fulfill that dream.
Very, very inspiring. Would you mind please sharing your social media website, your ways for our listeners to follow these endeavors, follow your brands, all your professional activity?
With pleasure. So I write a blog. It's adamantaboutbeauty.com. And then my personal social media is all my name. So at Ada Polla, ADAPOLLA. And then to follow Alchimie, it's our brand name. So at Alchimie Forever. And that's a tricky spelling, but you'll be able to find it online.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us again. Be sure to check out all that social media and websites. And be sure to check out the show on whichever platform you like to use. We're at What's It Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur on LinkedIn, your favorite morning podcast, Instagram and Facebook, and Podcasts by Lancey on Twitter. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lancey on all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalancey.com. If you check out my books, DM me. I want to hear what you think. We have Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed, both on Amazon. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please continue listening and rate What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur 5 stars. I work hard to find value delivering stories for you on each episode. And as always, I will end the show with a quote that inspired me and know it will for you too. And this one is from Maria Mentz Martin, the Spotlight story from earlier today. And she said in creating something from nothing that it's possible because she started from scratch with a computer engineering degree and a vision. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode of What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur.